My talk is called Leonard Bernstein's Unanswered Question Inspires Questions About the Origins of Games, Music, Language, and Humanity. How do I connect this with, it was connected before. Now it is. And then I have to lower this somehow, or raise this. Oh, perfect. So this is Leonard Bernstein, the American composer and symphony conductor. And he, in 1973, he gave lectures in Harvard, 6 lectures, called The Unanswered Question, which is the title of a symphony by Ives, the American composer. But for Bernstein, the unanswered question is whither music? Which direction will music go in? Because he lived in a time where musical tradition was just very unclear. And he was very intellectually thrilled by Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky is the famous linguist. So you see a picture of a diagram of a sentence like Jack loves Jill. And so Leonard Bernstein gave 6 lectures at Harvard, and these were videotaped. You can find them on YouTube, and they're miraculous in terms of their ability to, how can I say? You should probably show me because the slides will be available. These lectures are, you see, he spoke, but he also showed slides, and he also conducted an orchestra, you see. So, and he also sat by the piano. So I'll try to show a couple clips. But what he was interested to do with linguistics, to apply it to music, he talked about musical phonology, syntax, semantics, and he led to the concept of ambiguity. And then with the idea that in the 20th century we have this crisis of too much ambiguity, and then the poetry of Earth, he talks about his solution to that. So for me, this inspires a bunch of questions of my own that I want to talk about. And so one question is, which came first, language or music? But what we see with language, we see, I think like what Rasmus was talking about, we see it modeling something. You know, language is a system that is modeling reality. It signifies reality. But music is very much also a system, but it doesn't signify reality. It signifies itself. It maps onto its own structure. So the question is, which is first? And when you think about it logically, you can see that that's an argument to say that music came first. You see, it's much more easy for a system to learn to map itself, and then evolutionary, from an evolutionary point of view, it becomes useful for mapping the world, you see. So let's look at some other questions. This is the main question of my talk. When does sound become music? Okay, and so these will be 4 levels epistemologically, whether, what, how, why. But we'll see that human beings make sound into music, and that requires unison, it requires rhythm, it requires melody, and it requires harmony, and I'll explain that. But let's just start with evolution. The strange thing about evolution is that it heads in a direction. The central nervous system is evolving towards abstraction. It's a very strange thing. So a paramecium, a one-celled organism, touches the world directly. It's like this idea of the nature, right? A one cell lives in nature directly. It smells it, it touches it. But you see, a butterfly doesn't live in nature. A butterfly has a nervous system, and a butterfly lives in a world of flowers, of pictures, right? A mouse or a cat, you see, they don't live in a world of pictures. They live in the world of arrows and indices. You see, because the mouse is able to make a model of its attention, and it's able to make a model of the cat's attention, and it's able to say, that cat is looking at me, you see, or not. But an orangutan has an even more abstract world. An orangutan is able to say, there's a global workspace in my mind. There's everything. And part of that workspace is maybe paying attention to this, and part of the workspace is paying attention to that. So part of the workspace is saying, well, maybe this chair exists or not, I have free will. And part of the workspace saying is that if it is, then it is, and it is. You know, it's fate, right? So an orangutan can do that, and Kulikauskas says that the orangutans go off and they, like Buddhist monks, they're able to meditate, you know, and they just go around by their own. So what happens to humans? So if you look at these different frameworks, whether you're an orangutan or a great ape or a human, we're all able to be conscious. And that means that we're able to choose the state of mind, whether we are stepped in or we're stepped out. Like an orangutan can choose to ignore me or not. So it's conscious. But and it lives in a very tight circle of these divisions. But what an orangutan cannot do, you see, an orangutan can have linear grammar. It can say, okay, it can have hundreds of words. It can have the word for Jack and love and Jill. And it can say Jack loves Jill. And that would be called linear grammar. And from the pragmatic context, you decide what Jack loves Jill means. You see. So apes can do that. Sailors do that when they may not have the same language, but they have pidgin language. Second language users who go to another country, they don't learn syntax, but they are able to speak this way. People with certain brain injuries can still speak this way. And deaf children, if they live with their parents, they can speak with their parents in this way. But they cannot say Jill is loved by Jack. You see, Jack loves Jill and Jill is loved by Jack. It's very similar, but the word order is changed, you see. And that would cause confusion. Jill is loved by Jack is a non-linear grammar. It is rule-based. You have to understand which is to which. And so humans can do that, and music is like that, and I'll explain. So what is it that makes humans human? If you look at how you are sitting here, you are not sitting the way orangutans are sitting. Your legs are crossed. See, your hands are matched in a way. You see, you are matched. Everyone is kind of harmonized, you see. And these children, they are harmonized all with each other, bodily. It's like they're dancing. You see, if you were to, they look like they're dancing. You see, these are drawn some lines, but these lines show that they are all related. And even if their attention is in different worlds, you know, but still their bodies are kind of related. Their bodies are paying attention to each other, unconsciously. But now let's compare this with apes, okay, like chimpanzees. You see, all these apes, they're doing the same thing. I think maybe they're being fed. But you see, they don't look like they're paying attention to each other. Each is in their own world, right? It's very, we could not do this, because this is too strange, you see. So, they have one-on-one relationships, and they can have very complicated politics. But each one is with another one. They're not as a group, you see. And so we could take this room and we could have two different groups, and the one group would have its own harmony, and the other group would have its other harmony. So here's these children in Ethiopia, they're singing and dancing. If you look, their attention is in very different places, but their bodies are in perfect harmony. There's a beautiful nature, you know, wabi-sabi, I don't know, but there's something like that in this, and just in the way that they're standing. See, but autistic children, they don't have this. See, so all these autistic children are in their own world. And what that means, it means that we have a sixth sense, just like we're, you know, seeing and we're hearing. We have a physical sense of synchronicity, you know, just as how we're leaning against each other. And it's a physical sense, and you can lose it. It can be damaged, and you will be blind, or it can be diminished. So Asperger's syndrome is something like autism, but it's like being nearsighted. They don't have that, so they don't know when to start a conversation, and they don't know when to end the conversation, or if they do, it's because they learn it consciously. You know, so they're the same human beings we are, but they do not have this physical faculty. So what does that faculty do? You see, that makes us human, it means that we can tune to each other. Okay? And if we're tuned to each other, it will mean that we can have ambiguity. And it will mean that we can have two different systems, and maybe one person is talking, but maybe another person is listening, and then maybe they switch from, are you sending the signal or are you receiving the signal? So it's very complicated. It's a division of everything into 8. But, and probably maybe the 8s can do 7, but see this idea that it collapses. See, this idea that you could be sending and receiving could be ambiguous, the whole system collapses. I just really draw a picture. But so what I did, talking about, Chomsky was looking for the universal grammar of language. He's saying it's just completely remarkable that the little 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old child is able to learn Japanese, or able to learn Lithuanian, or able to learn English with very bad data. People are not programming this child. They're just speaking, and the child is able to figure it out, right? So there must be some kind of decoder in the mind. There must be some kind of universal grammar that allows the child to figure it out. And so that's what, because maybe Leonard Bernstein felt so lost in the musical chaos of his time, he was looking for what's the musical grammar of music. Now, I think I found that grammar, but it's a grammar of games, you see. Games are bigger than language, and games are bigger than music. And I studied it, I looked at Silicon Valley innovation games. So they would play games in Silicon Valley to make up products to sell to us, right? But you have games to start a game, to start the creative process. You have games to conclude the creative process. You can have a game within a game. Okay? You can have a game to get the ideas going and then to diverge, but then you have to have a game to kind of pull it all together. You can have these cycles of games. So it's a very complicated structure, and I can't talk about it today. But I want to talk about how we build to that structure. Okay? So the first thing, and I'm going to sing a Lithuanian song. You see, the beautiful thing about the videos with Leonard Bernstein is the man has such tremendous intuition about music that he can play with it and know it, and the centuries of styles and creativity, and he can try to play with musical ideas. I don't have that, so I have to be smarter. So the way I'm smarter is I say, well, let's just look at children's songs. Okay, the children's songs will explain why we're human. And so the one I did is Lithuanian. It's garnys. Let's do that together. Garnys, garnys, turi ilgas kojas. All together. Garnys, garnys, turi ilgas kojas. Bėgčiau, bėgčiau, kad galėčiau tokias kojas, kad turėčiau kaip garnys. All together. Bėgčiau, bėgčiau, kad galėčiau tokias kojas, kad turėčiau kaip garnys. Apes cannot do that. You see, apes cannot do that. Do you know why they cannot do that? They do not have unison. You see, they just talk and they can all right? They can do that. But to do it together and to tune each other into this, it's the same thing as that synchronicity. You see, and it probably came first. So, what does it mean? So first of all, this idea of octave. You see, men, like birds, make beautiful sounds. But birds don't sing at an octave difference. You see, men and women have different... So first of all, if you look at this, is what Leonard Bernstein called musical phonology. But the point is that you can take any sound on the spectrum, and you can divide it to see the resonance. So you will find octaves. So if you split the wave in half, it will be an octave difference. And if you do it again, it will be another octave difference, right? So that's what you can do. It has nothing to do with where you start, but it has to do with the structure. So we can tune into each other, but we also have an abstract world in our minds. The apes also have this abstract world, but they do not have the physical facility to be able to say, okay, they're singing one octave, we will sing the same thing octave. Well, we don't even notice. We can do this. So you can do it a third, and you can do it a fourth, and you can do it a fifth. Okay? So one of the things that Leonard Bernstein points out, there's a universal taunting song. It goes na 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 na. This is, he says, I don't know if in Japanese do they have this. Na 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 na. Did they do this or not? Not Japanese. No. But he said it's universal. But the point is that it's using the third and it's using the fourth. Okay. So the first point is, if we want to have a syntax we need to have well-defined atoms. So that means we have to be tuned to each other so that we can create, let's do it again. Gar, gar, oh, do it again. Let's do it again. Okay, but we can all do it together. It will be the crane, okay? We can do that in unison. We can clap in unison. So first we have to be able to create the sound together. The next level would be to have a rhythm, right? The next level would be to have a melody. That you can have a rhythm, but that's not music yet. You can have a melody, you see. Then that is not music yet, but it's getting close. You need harmony to have music. So what does that mean? You see, the crane has long legs. If you study it, not with the typical Western scale, but if you study it using physics, you have, let's say, this E sound, and you will also use E plus a quarter, and you will use E plus a third. Okay, so those three sounds are creating a chord, it's creating a musical system based on E. Okay, the crane has long. Now E plus a quarter is the same thing as a G. Okay. Now run, I would if I could. Run, I would if I could have such very long legs like the crane. You see, the second half is built on G. G minus a half, G minus a third. This is harmonic arithmetic, okay? And we do it automatically. But just to show how strange it is, I will give you a math problem. And it's very important because it shows you the relevance of having two systems. So it's like two cafes. I have my favorite cafe. I buy my sandwich there. It is 9 euros, okay? No, it's 8 euros. You see, but across the street, how much is it? Let's see. No, mine is 9 euros. Okay. Across the street, it's always mine is 8 euros. Mine is 8 euros. Across the street, it's always 1/3 more. Okay, it's 1/3 more. But now they're having a sale today, and all of their sandwiches are 1/3 off, 1/3 less. So where should I buy the sandwich? Usually it's 1/3 more there, but now they have a sale. Everything is 1/3 off. Where should I buy the sandwich? Where is it cheaper? What do you think? Do you think it's the same? Or not?
No, it's not the same.
It's not the same. See, a lot of people think it's the same. But the point is that 1/3 more of, let's say 9 this week. 1/3 more of 9 is 12. And 1/3 less than 12 is 8. You see, because it's a different third. So if you do it very quickly, you get very confused. But if you do it, that's the same thing as harmonic. You see, if it's a third and you put 1/3 more, it will be 4. But if you take the fourth and you take, you know what I'm talking about. So that's why this is very confusing, because it keeps changing. That's why you have different systems, and you can tell which system you are in depending on what thirds and fourths you're using, whether you're adding and whether you're subtracting. The point is that you have two systems. That's what makes it a music. It's not when you have garnys that it's a music. Garnys, that's not music. Garnys, that's not music. Garnys, turi ilgas kojas, that's not music. Then it becomes music. Does that make sense? You need two systems to have music. You need to compare two systems. And of course, so if you look at this, you can see what makes it interesting. So that's what makes it interesting. You can build it up like that. Now, let's compare to syntax. And that's what's happening with syntax, is that you see, when you have two systems, then you can say the difference between Jack loves Jill and Jill is loved by Jack with music. Are you in the bicho, or are you in the garnys? You have two different systems, and you can tell. So what you have, and this is Chomsky's idea, but this is what Bernstein loves so much. You see, you have semantics. Semantics would be some kind of direct meaning, like Jack loves Jill. It has a deep structure, so it organizes, let's say, and I'll say one of the things with games, all related to games, you see, what games do that's so important. Games create a world. You enter the world by asking a question, and then you play around, and then you leave the world by having an answer. Okay? So, for example, what is Jack? That's a question. You are Jack. That's the answer. Okay? What is Jack? That's a question. Jack loves Jill. Loves Jill. That's the answer. Right? So subject, predicate, symbol, signified. These are they're all really just question answer. They all have the same form. So I'll show a clip from Bernstein where he shows how beautifully that works. Why don't I do that right now? So this is an example of that question answer, how it works in music. It's very beautiful. See what this play? So do you see, it's a very good lecture. But to show that music, this is in semantics. He's saying that's the semantics of music, is that it's a metaphor, and it's a metaphor of dialogue. And we don't know what they're talking about, right? He's making up the words. But he's saying that that music has that meaning of that type of dialogue, that type of, something like that. You know, where it's almost like hearing people talking. You don't know what they're talking about, but you can sense that something's going on. You can feel, you can become emotional about that. So what Chomsky does with this Jack loves Jill, which is the linear structure that apes can understand, you see, but what humans do is that they can transform it. So they can take Jack loves Jill, they can say, does Jack love Jill? You see, they can make it a question. They can make it passive, Jill is loved by Jack. They could make it negative, Jack doesn't love Jill, you see. The crucial thing is, for Chomsky's theory, what he did was that he showed that there's transformations that are syntactic, not semantic, but that they're syntactic. And he showed that there seems to be a logic or order in the mind. So, for example, if you look, you could say, first you may negate Jack doesn't love Jill. Then you may ask two different kinds of questions. Jack doesn't love Jill would be one. Doesn't Jack love Jill would be another. And they're slightly different syntactically, but the crucial thing is that they have a definite order, you see. He doesn't talk about it much, but I want to show what that kind of order means for him. I'll play one more example from here. This is regarding that order. Does Jack love Jill? So that's a question. And now he's going to add a negative. So I'll be concluding, but I want to say that's what was exciting for him. And it's exciting to watch him because he's able to imagine this type of relation, and he has the intuition to maybe if we can figure it out, you see. So from a scientific point of view, he's very exciting. And this is just to say maybe why tonic, this is kind of answering this question, you see. You have a tonic, and then you play with it, but you have to keep coming back and returning to some kind of tonic, some kind of message, you see. So what he was saying, or what I was saying maybe to conclude, is that in this system, you have to have these 4 levels. Why have we created music? You have to have unison, then you can have rhythm, then you can have some kind of information melody. But the crucial thing is, to have music, you need harmony, which means different harmonies. You have some kind of, let's say, an E system and a G system, and they're talking. You can have a dialogue between 2 points of view. And then you can have ambiguity. Which point of view am I in? Which system am I in? Then that's where the whole interesting thing becomes in, that you can have layers and layers and layers of ambiguity. Of course, if you can get lost, or if you don't have a very strong tonic. So you have to keep having that cycle. You have a very strong tonic, then you can wander, then you wonder, where am I? And then maybe you come to a new tonic, or the same tonic, or whatever. So when we talk about epistemology, these levels are the same levels that Rouse was talking about. You see, what something is, that would be the rhythm. That's the copy. Okay, so you can be making copies. But how something is, the know-how, the idea that there's a model that I'm making the copy from. But with nature, there's 2 things. There's the original obvious thing that we can all be tuned, we can create an abstract reality. But finally, that there's some kind of harmonic truth or world, you see, that's totally, where they said the genius is coming from. Some giant kind of genius is coming from the harmonic world. And so there would be 6 types of artistic relationships between these 4 levels. Maybe the final point to say is that, you see, each of them requires a different parser. You have one parser to combine things into rhythm, but you need a different, like, you combine sounds into a word, but then you need to be able to combine words into a sentence with a different parser. You need to be able to combine sentence into some different meaning. There have to be different, in computers we say different parsers for different levels of information. So music has that same thing. And then to conclude, so I just want to say, my friend David Ellison Day and Leonard Bernstein, they knew each other in 1964, so I have a very good friend, and so that's how I learned about them. And Leonard Bernstein used to go and smoke, and he would talk to my friend across the street, and he would say, oh, how he is so unhappy that they make him do certain type of music, and he wants to do his own music. So my friend, so that he would talk to this black man, and they would smoke together, and he would tell him his feelings. It just showed he was a very democratic person. So this is the story of what is music and what is sound.
Уважаемые коллеги, аплодисменты.